Australia, Pakistan, Australia win the 3-test series 1-0. Very lackluster first 2 tests.
I think the first one was a ball. The second one probably
A little bit more interesting,
on the last day.
Didn't have the rain affected status of the first test. There was 14 wickets taken in that first test. 14.
14, yes.
Yeah, road.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the second test was a bit more of a road, and it took a lot to get going to make it actually an entertaining test, which was, the 5th day. They have finally got to that point, but it took a long time to get to it. But the third test had a lot more in it, especially with, we probably should say it, 2 collapses by the Pakistani team, especially once you got through the top order and into the bottom half, or the two. I don't want to say 2/3, but the back half of that the list, like they went from the tail. Well, maybe not. It's like got through the top 4, then everyone else afterwards. Went through them really quick.
Yeah, Rizwan and Fawad Alam are normally pretty handy with the bat. They didn't step up in this test, which makes that tail extra long. Trying to find an animal with a nice long tail to send to you boys to try and make some kind of joke. It was kind of a little bit lost, I think. But lemurs have quite long tails. There's a few lizards that have got tails that are about 3 times longer than their bodies. So quite reminiscent of the Pakistan team in this one. Let's recap quickly what happened in the test match. Australia batted first, made 391, 4 blokes getting to 50, no one going on. We're going to sing his praises in a minute. Usman Khawaja, 91, Cam Green, 79, Alex Carey, 67, Steve Smith, 59. That was all after a 2 for 8 start. I remember coming home Monday afternoon, again, that kind of a late viewing time for us here, kind of that 3:30 start, coming home from work, although you tend to miss that first little bit. Yeah. And I remember coming in and we were 2 for not much.
Well, I think I was the one joking. I was like, I thought this was meant to be a road. How did we lose 2 so quick?
Yeah, and credit where credit's due. That ball to Warner, that trapped him in front, that was an absolute seed from Shaheen Shah Afridi. And just a nice sort of length to Marnus, made him play outside the off. Didn't really look like it did too much, but that's where you want to do early on.
I think Marnus was forcing a little bit too much, I think, through this little test and the last test. I think seeing everyone else score runs, thinking, it's easy, I'll score runs, and probably throwing the bat at some stuff he'd usually leave alone. So. Yeah,
yes and no. I think he's a confident player. I think, when you're already arguably the best batter in the world.
Currently number one, yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, he would middle one of those cover drives. I don't think he was doing anything too out of character, obviously. Sometimes you middle them, sometimes you schnick them up and go for a duck. But it was a nice steadying of the ship there from Khawaja and Smudge. It was a 138-run partnership to get us to 391. Really good input from the bat with Cam Green and Alex Carey. Cam Green has got a bunch of scores in the 70s now. I think that elusive ton will come. We'll talk a little bit more about him as we wrap up the series statistically. Pakistan 268, they started very, very well. Abdullah Shafiq with 81, Azhar Ali, Baba Azam, the usual suspects.
Yep.
They were 3 for 248, so only 150 behind us with 7 wickets in hand.
Yeah, well, looking like, Aussies batted for 2 days and looking like Pakistan were going to bat for the next 2 days. And then...
Definitely 2.5 days into this test match, we thought, here we go, another draw, a nil-all series, nil-all 3 test match series, less... than scintillating viewing. That was definitely my feeling. And then absolute capitulation from Pakistan. They lost 7 for 20. They did go with the 5 specialist bowlers for this test, and hindsight's 2020. It did definitely come back to bite them in the bum.
Yep.
After Rizwan went, the tail was absolutely exposed. Pat Cummins and Mitch Stark cleaned them up. Cummins 5 for Starkey 4.
They had the ball hooping around. They got lots of nice swing in it.
Yeah, again, that reverse swing going.
Really made it hard for them and knocked them over. They were knocking the pegs over at will. So
they go flying over there, don't they? Yeah. I don't know if it's how hard the deck is over there. It's pretty rare to see the stumps go flying down in Australia. It's in the subcontinent. They seem to go all over the place. Much like the stick cricket game. You get bowled and they just go everywhere. Anyways, Australia go out there. It was kind of interesting how they were going to approach this. They went out pretty aggressive. You could see that they were playing for a win pretty early on. Warner was going well before succumbing for 51. And that man, Usman Khawaja, another 104, not I like the declaration. I think I was saying.
Well, what's just before we move on from Aussie, what's his stats? Isn't he had like 500 runs?
If you had a look at the notes, there's a whole segment on it.
Oh, you want to say? Okay. All right. I'm just wondering where we're going to start talking about Usman because I think we got to cover it.
Where we will. I put in the notes series takeaways, and the first thing in that Usman Khawaja. Anyway.
Well, I wasn't just talking about this series. I wanted to talk about his form coming off, playing in Australia.
Also in there.
Anyway, we'll finish here.
This is have you done your homework? And everyone says yes. Everyone's done their homework, and then you rock up and you got this the lab to do for science class. This was I'm speaking from personal experience. I did the pre-reading and then just getting absolutely carried by everyone else because I had done fuck all pre-reading. I hadn't looked at anything.
I'm pretty sure the only note in this was Steve Smith was terrible in the slips, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, the declaration. So
declaration. Yes.
I think after what we saw in probably the first two tests, we weren't sure whether they batted too much or whether they were, Cummins had made the right decision. I think this one was the right one because it gave both teams something to play for. Like it gave, Pakistan had the option they could chase, they could potentially win this test match, and it gave Australia enough time, not as much as it was in the second test, mind you. There was always the risk that, hey, Pakistan could play out the draw, but at least for them, they thought, well, at worst, it's going to be a draw or they're going to have to push, and potentially we're going to get a lot more wickets. And we liked what we did. Running through their tail. So we know once we get through the top four, the top 5, 6, we can then clean up the rest of them quite easily, which ended up being the case in this as well. So,
indeed.
Yeah.
So it was finding that balance, isn't it, between it being a risky declaration and risking the chance of losing the test match or it being too much and Pakistan just going into their shell and playing for a draw. I'd said I think 350 would be good. I thought 300 might have been leaving a little bit fine. I thought 400 maybe a little bit too thick, and that's what Pat Cummins decided. So thanks for listening to our group chat there, Pat Cummins. I'm sure that came into your decision making there. But a lot of speculation in that second test, especially around had they batted for too long and did the captaincy and the lack of declaration in the second test prevent a possible win in that one.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Gutsy declaration turned out obviously to be the right one. Pakistan had 351 to make. They made 235. They were off to a good start. I was a little bit worried at stumps day 4, none for 73. Imam ul Haq has had an excellent series. He made 70.
With 280 to chase and with the day left, you're like, you have all to play for. You start to worry about, these guys are in again and they're very hard to get out.
Indeed. Something we struggled with all series, getting these guys out.
Yep.
And it was the first time in the whole series where we went into a day 5 and we knew that there's a result on the table.
Yep.
Yes, the draw was still there, but more likely than the draw, it was a Pakistan or Australia win.
Someone's going to win.
It was definitely the best day's viewing, the most enticing day's viewing throughout the series. After that good start, Nathan Lyon did a little bit of damage. And then as soon as much like that first innings, as soon as we got through the likes of Babar Azam, Azhar Ali, he went a little bit earlier than usual. Once we got through Fawad Alam and Mahmoud Rizwan, the tail did not offer much resistance. There was a few.
I think those bottom 5 put on 60. I think across them. So I think they're all
21, 22. I'm out.
Not even 60. 21, 1, 13, 5, 1. Quick maths. 45.
Yeah, they didn't put on a lot at the end there.
Indeed. And look, I don't know anyone that could have played some of these balls. The deck was starting to get a little bit variable in its bounce. Some of the ones from the quicks were absolutely unplayable.
Well, even Nathan Lyon, it either stay down or it might bounce out, and he was getting some decent turn. It was doing everything as you'd expect a day 5 pitch to do. It wasn't a flat road like we had seen previously. So that was a good way to end the series, at least.
What about the Hassan Ali dismissal? You feel for the bloke. He had actually middled a few before this. He was really trying to push the envelope to try and score runs quick and try and assert some Pakistani dominance and try to swing the game back in their favour. He went for a big slog sweep, completely missed the ball. A little bit of that variable bounce we were talking about. This one actually popped up a little bit from Nathan Lyon, hit his grill on his helmet, spun straight over the back of him and into the stumps.
Yeah, like it was off his helmet and then his bat coming through. He hit his bat and then
did you reckon it hit the bat too?
It hit the bat as well, and then that pushed it down to then hit the stumps. Like it was so unlucky.
It was a comedy of errors and very unlucky. Watching it live, I didn't know what happened because I saw him miss the ball, and then I saw the stumps get broken.
And you think
like 2 seconds
you're
later,
like, did Kerry grab it and like stump him or something like? But no.
Yeah, well, I thought it might have hit the stumps like clean, and the bails took a while to come off. And then I watched the replay. I was like, oh, that's unlucky, poor fella. And then not much resistance after that. So first time in 24 years that the Australians win in Pakistan. Big caveat, obviously.
First time back.
First time back. But we have notoriously struggled to beat Pakistan in Asia. We'll get to that in just a second.
Struggled in Asia in general. So.
Yeah, indeed. Pat Cummins gets the final wicket. Get this, he's only the third Australian captain ever to win in Pakistan. Mark Taylor famously having that 334 not. His team won over there. And Richie Benaud, the man who the series is named after, in the Benno Kadir series, he also won over there. You might just scroll back up a touch there, Max, if you wouldn't mind. So obviously first time back in Pakistan for 24 years. They beat us in the Emirates in 2018-2019, 1-0. Beat us in the Emirates in 14-15, 2-0. And we actually beat them 3-0 way back in 02-03. So that's the last time that we beat Pakistan away. So 20 years ago. Names in that team: Langer, Hayden, Ponting, the War brothers, Gilchrist, Warren, rest in peace, McGrath. The team that we kind of grew up with, that dominant late 90s, early noughties team was prior to Friday the last team to beat Pakistan away. And 10 years since we'd won in Asia. So the last time we did that was beating Sri Lanka 1-0 in 2011. Coming up on 11 years since we've had a series win in Asia. Pakistan in Asia, done. Probably India in Asia next. Yeah, piece of cake. I reckon we do that next time pretty easily.
Whitewash. We'll roll.
All jokes aside, when do we beat India in India next? Do we ever beat India in India ever again? Who knows? But a monumentous occasion for both Australia and Pakistan. Pakistanis able to host this series. They had international cricket, but getting Australia obviously a pretty big draw card. It went, But
I think the other bit, also being really competitive as well. They've got some talent. They've got some. The young 19-year-old, like he looks like an absolute weapon going forward. So
we'll have a look going forward. I think where Pakistan are at in just a second. I think I mentioned it in when we were talking about the first test. I thought we were actually going to go over there and roll these guys, considering they hadn't. Yeah. Not many of them had that much red ball experience. Obviously, very different with the white ball, and I was pleasantly surprised with how good some of these guys were.
I think the road helped a little bit.
Indeed. Now, that man Usman Khawaja, there's a whole segment here that we can talk about our boy Aussie. I've got some numbers.
I thought you were going to, the Australian Cricket Australia going to rule him out and keep him out as long as possible.
You thought Pepe was going to brush him for years like Cricket Australia did?
Definitely.
Well, let's start with that. Who was keeping Usman out of the side? Was it just the selectors? Was it JL? Was it Tim Payne? Was it I don't think it was the playing group, to be honest. They all seem like very good mates. It probably, and I don't
who was getting picked over him?
Marcus Harris,
Joe Burns going back, Bancroft.
That's going back too far, because the last time that Khawaja played before this recent recall was 2019. So essentially, Marcus Harris getting the nod over.
And he was maybe picked as a favourite because Dave Warner wanted to bat with him. So.
Yeah, Warner had outlined that, although Warner and Khawaja, good mates as well, played junior cricket together in Sydney growing up. So I don't think it was a David Warner thing. It was something to do with the JL selection committee, the administration at the time that was really set on trying to develop Marcus Harris, who at a Shield level has shown a bit of promise. He just hasn't been able to take his opportunity when given the baggy green, and the poor bloke, all of Australia lets him know about it.
Yeah. Matt Wade was another one, but he I think also kind of fell into the same situations as he did. The Cricket Australia didn't want to play him until he'd basically battered the house down and scored all the runs. They had to pick him.
Yeah.
Maybe it's age because both those guys are in their 30s. So
great point. I think there was that kind of emphasis as to let's and
we want to get to
and with Pekowski, who has struggled with his concussion of late.
He's the favourite son.
Exactly, and Warner's getting on, so I think that's a really good point that you bring up there, Sean. Is that Khawaja 35, Warner a touch older. Mm-hmm. I think Cricket Australia were thinking, right, let's try and blood these young guys and get them established. So we've got our next, Langer and Hayden, if you will, an established opening pair.
Trying to get someone in that 26 to 28-year-old bracket.
Yeah, both Victorians, Pekowski and Harris, maybe that was behind some of their thinking. They could play together at Victoria and then just come through at an Australian level. But whoever was making the decision was making the fucking wrong decision.
They haven't cleared house, but there's been a bit of a rejig of late with the selectors, of course, across in Cricket Australia. So,
and then a lot of chat around, Usman's not an opener, because he bats 3 or 4 when he plays Shield cricket. He's opened so much for Australia, but in the past, and that's where he's done his best. He's getting the new rock.
Plus, that's his heritage as well, to go over Pakistan and absolutely kill it. Well, that was a great scene.
Well, he was never getting dropped after his back-to-back tons in Sydney, was he?
No.
Let's look at the series. So 496 runs in the series at 165. Pretty handy. Only dismissed 3 times. And this purple patch. So since coming back into the Australian cricket team after that 2 years in the wilderness, he's had 9 knocks, 4 tons and 2 50s. And mind you, both those 50s he was dismissed in the 90s. Yep. So 4 tons and twice very close to
tunning up. Making 6.
Yeah. So 131, 101 not out. That was in Sydney. Hobart, the only place that he struggled, bit of a green deck there, 6 and 11. And then since then, this series, 97, 160, 44 not, 91, 104 not, for a total of 751 runs since being recalled and an average of 125.
Yep.
I don't think he's getting dropped anytime soon. Usman Khawaja, enjoy your time at the top of the order. I hope you play there until you retire.
I think maybe it was one of the Marsh. I can't remember. So one of the old boys on commentary a while back, used to always shit on Usman that he can't play in Asia, but I think
Chappelli?
Yeah, it might have been.
Former mop of the week. To join Monks and myself in recipients of mops of the week.
But I think he's like as in he's not a real good player of spin, blah blah. But hey, he did well in Pakistan. So
did he look like he struggled with spin? I thought that was one of his strong points.
Talking head's going to talk. So
of course, there's 3 right here.
Yes. We're not old blokes yet.
Yeah, we're not old. We also never played cricket for Australia, so I don't think people hold our opinion with much stead. But no, I tend to agree. There was a lot of, he can't do this and he can't do that. Yeah. And then when you looked purely at the numbers, you're like, this is a bloke who before this, I think now he's averaging about 48 in Test cricket.
Yep.
And before this purple patch was averaging about 43. Had can you bring up his numbers? I think before this purple patch, I think he might have had 8 Test centuries already.
Yep.
Obviously a proven guy. I just don't know why it took so long for him to come back in. And again, no disrespect to Marcus Harris, but had been given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And look, Usman took the most of his. So where's he at now? He's got 12 tons now, doesn't he?
12 tons now.
And average 47 something?
Averaging 47. So he's got 3 tons against England, 3 tons against Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So all 3 of those tons were these this tour, I should say.
Yep.
So already proven against England. What about the numbers against India? Has he played much against India?
India, he's played 4 matches against India, so I suppose not too much, but
at 25.
That was
at 28. So that's maybe the question mark.
And that might have been in India as well, that test. That kind of rings a bell. And I think some of the stigma, I think they were talking about, like he can't play spin. But that could just be, that's in India. Like, no one can.
Who scores runs in India? Joe Root. Joe Root can score runs in India.
Similar average against Sri Lanka as well.
Yep. Between playing on landmines.
11 and 19. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's any question marks on his ability to play spin. And like you say, with him being born in Pakistan and what it meant for him and what it meant for the fans. It was so good to see so much love for Usman Khawaja.
Yep.
They were really.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because the two teams they basically had to bunk together. They're in the same hotel, and by all accounts they got on really well. Like they actually instead of not interacting with each other and trying to be at each other's throats, they were actually very, very close. Got together. Sounds like there's some friendships. Guys probably played together elsewhere, IPL, etc. So yeah, it was good to see that it wasn't, it was a fun, competitive, like gentleman's game versus some of the bicker in your niggly kind of games that you've seen in the past.
Yeah, by all accounts, very hospitable and the fans very welcoming. You saw
the crowds were excellent.
Yeah, so many signs.
School kids getting pulled out and they're taking whole schools. To watch
exactly, and signs about the Australian players, written in English so they can see them. A lot of love for Marnus, I noticed. A lot of love for Pat Cummins. Yeah. Really interesting series and really good to see cricket back in Pakistan. Those horns can get absolutely fucked. They were very annoying. Yeah, the Vuvuzela, reminiscent of the 2010 Soccer World Cup with the Vuvuzela. That was one takeaway. Usman Khawaja should probably never. Well, after he got dropped, he should have been back in the side a lot earlier. I think anyone in Australia could have told you that.
Yep.
Going forward, I hope he opens the batting for Australia until he retires. And that's no disrespect to Marcus Harris, and obviously wishing Will Pugovski all the best with his recovery. But I think Usman has most certainly cemented that spot. He's 35, is he not?
Yeah, which might be good for Will because it probably buys Will a bit of time. It's like, I don't need to rush back into the side.
Don't need to be rushing him.
Just get a whole bunch of cricket on your belt, get a couple, maybe even like a year worth of cricket where you get, you've played, had no concussion issues, you're feeling good, and then, Usman's like, I'm done, I'm finishing up. And then you can walk straight back into the squad.
Even with Pukovski coming back in and I know it's hard to keep people away from the sport that they love, and concussion's such a insidious one. It's not like if you've got a broken leg or an ACL that's missing where you literally can't go out there. Your brain might be feeling good.
Yeah, well, that shit's repairable as well. So an extent.
Well, I'm just saying in terms
quality of life, etc.
My point more being
your brain's a bit different.
My point being, Will probably wanting to get back out there, I kind of thought, again, not a doctor, I kind of thought, well, maybe rest him, because there are only a few games left in the Shield, then you've got the whole off-season to work on it, but obviously he's keen to get out there and score runs. Hard to keep people away from doing the things that they love.
Yes.
Point number 2, Cameron Green is very, very good at the cricket.
Yeah. Well, you remember our conversation we had about how did we get swept in the squad, and we were talking about how, Cummins and Hazelwood are very similar bowlers, so Hazelwood misses out. The thing we
elite call from you, which I was very surprised with.
Yeah, which it kind of worked out as well because you had Starkey with the swing. That's what you wanted to get out of him. But I think the thing we missed was Cameron Green also bowls that similar sort of line and length, and he can do that job for you. So potentially he's kind of filling in as your third quick, which was he doing in this series. So you could get Swepson in. I think Swepson was maybe a little bit unders for what you were hoping to get out of him in this.
He had a rough start to his Test career. I also had a rough first few games. Shane Warne.
Yeah.
It's hard to go there.
It's a debutant. Like it's in Asia as well. Like
Asia, exactly right.
But you want to get him match time, and this is probably the best time to get him. You can. Because the conditions suit playing the two spinners while you wait for the GOAT to see out his career and then retire, and then you may be the replacement. So
he doesn't look like slowing down anytime.
No, not at all.
He looked very good on that day 5 deck there in Lahore.
Oh, all the tricks. So, but that's the other thing you want if you can get Swepson, on the pitch, watching Nathan Lyon bowling that and seeing how the tricks he's using and how can I then take some of that and apply it, you do it. So, but Cameron Green gives you that option, I think is what my point, that we kind of missed out of when we had that conversation is like, it's bad for Hazelwood, it's bad for Boland, but, if the situation arises, they've got Cameron Green that can get in there and do your job and do a really good job at that.
Bowls 140 and bat 6.
Yeah, like it's...
11 tests for Cameron Green to get 15 wickets, 500 runs, 10 catches. One other player has done that, and he's a knight, Sir Ian Botham. You might have heard of him. They're the only two to do it that quickly. So Green and Botham doing it quicker than guys like Steve Waugh, who obviously bowled a lot more as a younger player. Guys like Jux Callis, Ben Stokes, pretty handy company to be in there for Cameron Green.
As a comparison, you want him to be our Ben Stokes and then hopefully eclipse that. Like that's where you want him to go.
Yeah, even getting to just being Ben Stokes for all that he's been through, and as much as we don't really like him as Australian fans, but you have to respect the talent that
he's the second best English player they've got. So.
Definitely, and arguably the best all-rounder currently in the world. I think Ravi Jadeja might have something to say about that as well. Let's say arguably the best fast bowling all-rounder in the world at the moment. Yep. If Cam Green could get to being like an Australian Ben Stokes, we'd be thrilled with that.
Absolutely thrilled. And he's so young, it's crazy.
He's 22. He's 22, isn't he? What's his numbers, Monks? Current test average, current bowling average. Obviously, that 100 has eluded him. That's coming for sure. I think he has sort of mentioned as well. He gets through 50, and then he starts getting a little bit in his own head about scoring his maiden test ton. What are the numbers?
He's still so young though. Yeah. He could literally play for another 15 years for Australia, which is bananas.
It is.
It is.
Test average around 35?
36.4. His high score is 84.
Yep. How many 50s? 5?
50s, yeah, 5 50s. Yep. And then he switched to bowling.
Such a big man, he bats so well.
And such a big man to field in the gully. And the way that he moves fielding in the gully, that's an represented part of his game.
Did he play any basketball growing up?
Good question. I am not sure.
Mark's chase his history for us.
Just check up everything. Can we get a bowling average before you do that?
Yeah, 30.8.
So there we go. We talk about those ratios about elite all-rounders.
I guarantee you it was either basketball or AFL. He probably had to have played something else.
Well, he's from WA. I suspect he played a bit of footy growing up. I don't think that's too far of a reach. But yeah, going back to those numbers, averaging 36 with the bat and 31 with the ball, already over that 1-to-1 ratio. You love to see that out of Cam Green. Next point, Stephen Smith not quite at his best. You mentioned before there's a few little drops in the slips, although on day 5 he took them when they
took them when it mattered.
That one at his ankles was a really nice catch.
Yep.
It's a kind of Coley-like at the moment, isn't it? They're both getting to 50 and then converting their 50s into hundreds.
He's still doing a job. Like he's still coming in and doing what he needs to do. But he's not.
He also averages like 59 and like I'm obviously a massive Steve Smith fan, and I just want to see him go out there and break the hoodoo a little bit. Getting to 50 and not converting a little bit.
Yeah, I have no complaints about his batting. I think it was more his slip fielding was the under question, and it seemed like he was either distracted, maybe because he's got a bit of captaincy duty to do, or distracted, not paying attention, or the guys were getting stuck into him, the commentators that is, about not using the right techniques.
Again, Steve Smith doesn't know how to cash. Please, everyone drops a few.
He just, like you say, he's probably just a rough patch. It was warm out there, so
and wasn't that interesting that the contrast between Rawalpindi in the first test when it was like 17 degrees at times and everyone's wearing their vests. To
high 30s, to mid 30s in the last one.
Yeah, mid to high 30s in Karachi and Lahore.
Yeah. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm not worried.
Well, it becomes more of an issue if it's a long-term problem. Like we see it series
like Coley.
Still hasn't got a century since when?
I don't know, but he's made a lot more test centuries than we ever had. But yeah, again, big talking point. It's been over 2 years for Virat. To take it away from Virat and back to Smudge, I'm not concerned. I think it's just one of those things, Usman's in a purple patch. Steve is in a purple patch at the moment. An unbelievable talent, and I think it's only a matter of time before he scores his next Test 100.
Oh, well, the problem is he then starts getting to Virat Kohli territory, and then everyone's talking about it, and it's all they're focusing on. Yeah, well, it becomes a bit of a monkey. So it's
I don't think it's a monkey just yet.
Do you reckon he'll get that same attention though? Because he's not currently captain at the moment, where Coley was captain.
He's still Steve Smith though.
Well, what kind of how are we scaling attention on a global scale?
Yeah.
Well, no,
No one gets
down.
Coley attention.
No one gets
exactly, exactly, and it's not even been a big talking point in our media after Sandpaper Gate. I don't think. A slight form slump in terms of being headline news in the mainstream media. I don't think it'll be a big talking point for quite some time.
Yeah.
And last series takeaway, I've already sort of touched on it already. Pakistan are back. Really good effort from them. Could have easily won this series. Had a few different things gone their way. We struggled in the first two tests to bowl them out. That was evident. So really good effort from our bowlers in the third test. Naseem Shah and Shaheen Shah Afridi are both young. They look very good. They'll only continue to get better. That elite middle order that we already knew about. Babar Azam is a quality player. Mohammad Rizwan is a quality player. Azhar Ali, very good, although is getting on a little bit. So it will be, he'll hand this team over to Babar, and it essentially, it will, like, he's the captain in waiting.
Yeah, definitely.
A breakout series. Abdullah Shafiq and Imam ul Haq opening the bat. I did mention it, how inexperienced at test level a lot of these guys were going into the series. They show that they can really play. So a lot to take forward for Pakistani cricket fans.
Definitely, and they've shown the white ball form, like they've got some good quality talent there, and showed in the red ball form. Excellent.
And we've got 3 ODIs and a T20 coming up this week. I would be surprised if we win that ODI series. Pakistan white ball, very very good.
How different is that squad going to be?
Their squad.
I think their squad will be very. I mean, more the Australian squad.
The Australian squad.
Who have they taken with them?
Marnus won't play white ball cricket.
Yep.
Hard to see Khawaja in there. Hard to see Cameron Green in there. Sweption, hard to see him in there. You'd imagine Zampa comes in. Lyon, hard to see in there.
Yeah.
So half the team probably changes.
Yeah. They have got squad over there, James. I was just wondering who they're taking with them.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind chasing that one up, the ODI squad, I'd imagine about half our team changes.
I'll just run through the full list here. So Aaron Finch obviously captaining up the front there. Then we've got Sean Abbott, Ashton Agar, Jason Berendorf, Alex Carey, Nathan Ellis, Cam Green, Travis Head, Josh Inglis, Marnus.
Full squad. All the boys are there.
Marsh, McDermott.
Yeah, McDermott, Kane, Richardson, Stoinis. Swepson is listed there. Zampa.
So no Smith, no Warner for that ODI series. They must just be having a break. So it will look very, very different. Mitch Marsh, we've spoken at length about his white ball form. You'd imagine he slots straight in there somewhere. It'll be interesting to see, actually, who is in that side. The only definites will be Finch, obviously, as skipper. Carey will be the number one wicket-keeping choice. Mitch Marsh has to be straight in. Stoinis, Zampa, I'd imagine, straight in. Outside of that, who knows? We've spoken a lot about Ben McDermott. I'd love to see him get a crack and take advantage of it because he's done so well at a domestic level and hasn't shown it on the international stage just yet.
Did you get an answer on Cameron Green for us?
Yes, I could not find anything on any other sports.
I guarantee you, as a young Western Australian, he played Australian rules football growing up. As to whether or not if there's a basketball history, I don't know. I'd imagine he played a fucking lot of cricket.
Yeah, from the sounds of it, he's been playing like elite cricket since very early age. So maybe just dedicated himself to that.
Doesn't surprise me.
Looks like he debuted for Sheffield Shield at like 17, 18.
Yeah.
Off a pretty good average. So
they gave that. I thought they would.